I'm Dustin Baker. We're going to talk about these undefeated savants, Vikings from the preseason. After 10 straight preseason losses and 5 years of anguish in August, it's all over. The Vikings were undefeated this preseason, probably because the roster is deeper than years past. And we're going to talk exactly about that with Alex Micheletti. How are you, man?
Good. How are you doing, Dustin? Good to see you too, Brev. Yeah, it was a exciting end to the preseason for the Vikes, and now we are in cut watch. So it should be interesting by Tuesday, getting down to the 53.
Well, it's good that you brought up Cut Watch because that's pretty much the gist of this show. Tuesday at 3 p.m. Central, I believe, is when the NFL will reduce by about 1,200 players. Some of them will go to the practice squad. 700 and change will hit free agency. Brev, how are you, sir?
I'm good. I told you guys a little bit pre-show. I've watched the condensed replay of the game once, so I'm not as. And we have a way around that we discussed pre-show. So I know the gist of what happened today, but yeah. And I told you guys, for people that don't know, of course, people watching mostly gonna be from Minnesota. So like Valley Fair, I work at a sister theme park of that here in Virginia. And we had a huge hiring event today that turned out to be a complete flop. Like, we were expecting the most, and it was like 38-7. Nobody showed up, which is really cool. So I thought I'd be able to watch the game, but it turns out that Northern Virginia is just not going to get a Vikings preseason game, even though it's in Philadelphia, which is 3 hours down the road. But I don't know.
It was, since you bring up 38-7, that reminded me. It was so weird watching the Vikings play the Eagles during the daytime in that stadium. Like, when I turned it on, I was like, why don't I recognize this place? And I think it's because either we watched them in prime time in regular games, or certainly with Vikings games in prime time or late afternoon. I think they played in the regular season 2018. So under the noon bright light sunlight, we got to watch these Vikings beat those Eagles. All right, Brev, you're the MC tonight. What's the first topic? Hit Alex with it.
Yeah, so week one, you would not have guessed that Jiren Hall would put on the performance, especially today, but also last week that he put on. So you see the 53-man projections like, oh, well, they're only going to keep 2 quarterbacks. Maybe they've learned nothing from what happened last season. Do you think that Jiren Hall has done enough, pending Sam Darnold and Nick Mullins at the safe QBs 1 and 2? Do you think that Jiren Hall has done enough to force the Vikings' hand in keeping a third quarterback on the 53-man?
I think he's done enough, but I don't know if, just with roster flexibility, if they, if they just want to try to stash him on the practice squad again, just because, I mean, there's so many battles going on, especially on that defensive line, and then in the secondary too. So I think he's done enough, but I think they'll just try to stash him on the practice squad and use that, emergency rule.
I think the risk there is somebody would take him, maybe even just to spite the Vikings. The only catch is they have to, I believe, put him on their active roster. That would be team. So I think that's too risky when you already lost your quarterback 2 weeks ago. So I think Hall will make the 53-man. I'm not like pounding the table that guaranteed to happen, but when I predict mine Monday, he's going to be on there. And here's the deal. I know everybody was really excited about him today, and rightfully so. And even the producer of this show, Tyler, loves Jiren Hall. I just think he is a very promising backup. Like, his mechanics are still effed up to me. He seems like he's often late and overthrows. He got completely bailed out by an interception on that first drive that we just didn't care about. Yep. So all of the excitement, I enjoyed it, but I don't look at this through a lens of, well, eventually if Sam Darnold falters, Jiren Hall can be the guy. I don't think that's going to happen. But I am excited that we have a homegrown backup quarterback. But I don't have any expectations. Like I did last year, we didn't have any faith in young quarterbacks because McCarthy wasn't here. Kirk was on his way out. I would look at Hall before I saw him and be like, maybe he could morph into anything. But I think that morphing into would be a QB2. So I think he'll make the roster. I do understand that they kept 2 last year. But as you said, Brev, about 3 minutes ago, they were ravaged by injuries last year, quarterback. And you would think they would want to avoid the Dobbs situation, trading for a guy, getting him up to speed in 72 hours. So I hope they keep 3, and I hope it's small. And certainly Matt Corral, I think, ruled himself out.
Yeah, I don't have much more to add to that. Like, you guys kind of hit the nail on the head. Jiren Hall, Luke Braun actually brought up a good point. on Locked On Vikings, I think yesterday. He said that like waiver claims don't happen nearly as much as like we think they do. Like if you put a player on waivers, there's a very good chance, especially if they're a veteran, that they'll make it back to your team. But with somebody like Jiren Hall, who could have that promising development, and I think teams around the NFL know he's not going to be a starter. He is hopefully a backup. Maybe that would be enough for the Vikings to keep him, but I'm not too sure. Either way, it looks like.
Do we know? So if let's say they keep two, Darnold and Mullins, and then Hall hits the practice squad, can he be routinely called up as that QB3 rule over and over and over? Or does he have to live on the 53-man roster and then just get a designation, and then they can call up another guy to the practice squad each week from the practice squad?
That's a really good question because I don't know, because that rule you mentioned is like emergency quarterback, right? So
yeah.
I don't think he counts as the part of the 46 on game day.
Okay.
So I would hope so. That would make the decision easier, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. We'll have to look into that and report back to the group. What's the next thing you got, Brev?
Yeah. So tight end, I guess position battle is shaping up interestingly to where I think Hawkinson, he'll probably be back like week 6. So out of Johnny Munt and Josh Oliver are safe. Those are your 2 and 3, not respectively, but whatever order. You can keep one of these 4. You got to cut the other 3, and that is N'Keal Harry, Robert Tonyan. Why am I blanking?
Nick Muse.
Nick Muse and Neil Davidson?
Neil Johnson.
Neil Johnson. Yeah. I tried to be like a hero and remember all the names off the top, and I just couldn't do it.
Are you taking that one, Alex, first?
Yeah, I can take it. I think you try to keep Nick Muse. It just seems like Tanyan's too banged up right now. I know Nick Muse was kind of hurt too. N'Keal Henry and and Dustin, you watched. He made some nice plays today, but he's not a normal tight end. They're trying to transition him to that position, and I just think Muse is familiar with the system. He's well respected in that locker room. I think he's earned another chance to make the team.
Yeah, I think settled on them keeping 6 wide receivers because Hawkinson will be on the PUP, and then I think that would mean only 3 tight ends. Oliver, let's see, Munt, and then Muse. We were all really high on Tonyan about 2-3 months ago, and I just don't know if he did anything this summer to keep him on the roster. Darren Wolfson said the other day that his body might just be broken down too much, that you don't keep him. All these big name guys we brought on 3 months ago, and Reisner, Shelley, and Tonyan might just be nothing burgers once it gets to September. And then N'Keal Harry's fascinating because if they don't want to keep 6 wide receivers and they cap it at 5, then N'Keal Harry could, in theory, be the swing guy who kind of does both because Hawkinson's out. But at the end, if I wanted to lock in a prediction, I would say Hawkinson to the PUP, Oliver, Munt, and Muse. Pretty much exactly what Alex said.
Yeah, and I will third that statement because I guess it would come down to between Muse and N'Keal Harry. Like, really the only guy, Robert Tonyan, confidently can say he's not going to make the 53, but like Neil, you're not going to make the 53, sorry. But yeah, I'd have to echo you guys in that prediction pretty much.
And I don't think other NFL teams care about N'Keal Harry. He's a guy that would hit waivers and can go to the practice squad.
Exactly. Yep.
I think Patriots fans are gonna always dread Bill Belichick taking Harry over Deebo Samuel when they could have done that.
Go.
Yeah.
Every team has one of those.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
We took Irv Smith right before DK Metcalf or something, or was it AJ Brown?
I think it was AJ Brown. Yeah, that just it really hurts. But
sweet. Wow. Shout out Rick. So we'll go into kind of a series of keep one, cut one. We're gonna name 2 players. It's not that like we think or I think exactly. It'll come down to the 1-and-1 because we have no idea what they're thinking at TCO. But all the players are kind of in the same position group as another when you're picking between the 2. So hypothetically, if if you're at TCO and Quasey's sitting there making the decision between this guy and this guy, if it came down to that, who you guys would take. So first pairing will be between Bo Richter and Andre Carter II at the edge position.
I really like Andre Carter. He's so intriguing. The size that he has. He made a really good play today. I'm intrigued by his skill set. Bo Richter flashed a little bit in preseason, and then he hasn't been heard of since after that first preseason game. So I'm in the Andre Carter camp.
Brev, do you have in this example the Vikings keeping Jihad Ward and Patrick Jones or not?
I would say they'd keep Jihad Ward and Patrick Jones probably. So you're looking for that fifth edge rusher.
Wouldn't
Just in this,
sixth?
I'm not saying that's what I believe they'll do, but like in this hypothetical.
Okay, I think this would come down to the sixth edge rusher then.
Oh yeah,
if I'm doing the math correctly.
Yep.
Oh boy, I liked what I saw from Richter enough to pick him over Carter, but I think both guys can get to the practice squad, like we talked about, without fear of somebody getting swiped. Maybe Richter would, because he had a pretty sweet first two preseason games. With Richter, I've spent the last week and a half trying to figure out if he's one of those guys that we've banged our chests on too hard because it's preseason. That happened with T.Y. McGill last year. Albert Wilson 2 years ago caught 3 touchdowns in a game. We're like, boom, WR3. And the guy was cut like 3 days later. With Richter, I can't quite figure that out. He wasn't drafted because he had the Ivan Pace syndrome where he was like a little bit too small, which I think is dumb.
Service Academy guy.
Yeah. So between the two military guys, I would probably go Richter, but if you're keeping Jones and Jihad Ward on a roster projection, I don't know that either one of those guys, I don't know if they'd keep 6 edge rushers.
Yeah, I'm not too sure either. But like if you gotta choose between the two, this is kind of a hard one for me because like I love the flashes that Bo Richter showed, but of course I uploaded the film from his week 2 game. I don't remember his week 1 film that well, but like other than that sack he had against Cleveland, like I think I'm on the record on Twitter for saying his tape was a complete snooze fest.
That's what Yannick Eckhart told me too.
Yeah, he just got washed out of plays really easily. They bid on a lot of play fakes, which he's a rookie. I mean, I guess that can be fixed, but I think I'd still go Bo Richter just because Andre Carter. I think he had a strip sack today that James Lynch recovered. I remember that. But again, if this is a 6th edge rusher, I think it is a situation where both guys would probably make the practice squad and may the fittest survive, I guess. All right, next pairing, Lewis Cine or Jay Ward.
Man, Lewis Cine, he's so inconsistent. The previous game he looked incredible, and then today he had some dumb penalties. I don't know if he's done enough to earn a spot. I think you keep Ward.
Ward has the versatility too. I don't know that anybody would like slip Cine out the cornerback. Oh boy, on this one, I would rather, if I had to choose between these two, I'd rather than pick Cine, but my paranoia is Cine will make the active roster and he doesn't play again. And it's like, really? And that's not because he sucks. It's because they already have safeties galore. And they don't need another safety to bust out. Now, next year at this time, if Harrison Smith retires, it's a different story. But they kept 6 safeties last year. And if they're able to find a pathway to do that, I think this question would be, you have to factor in Bobby McCain there, because in theory they could keep Metellus, Hitman, Bynum, Theo Jackson, Cine, and Ward, and that's the 6. And then it's really whether or not you keep Bobby McCain, who's a pretty hard hitter. But keeping 6 safeties was really weird. And I don't know. I'm going to guess when we're all chilling here 4 or 5 days from now, we'll look back and say, you remember how good Lewis Cine looked that preseason game? Well, it was only one preseason game. And he was either traded for a late rounder or waived. He will get picked up by somebody if he gets waived. I, too, got engulfed in that momentum. And I still hope Cine makes the team. But it's going to be real shitty if he makes the team. And then November 2nd, we're talking about, hey, Cine's only played 2 defensive snaps this year. We'll just go through the whole rigmarole again. I'd rather not. Yeah,
and that's exactly what me and Jason were talking about yesterday on the Social Network was, okay, Cine just had this masterful week 2 performance, and of course this is before his dud of a game today, or mostly a dud at least. Okay, Lewisine makes the roster. When does he play?
He doesn't.
And he won't play special teams.
Yeah, he's not getting over Harrison Metellus buying him. I think I'd rather have Theo Jackson playing safety in a meaningful regular season game. So as you bring in Lewisine back to be a punt gunner and hoping to God he finds development going into next year. So like at this point, I think I would take Ward 2 for the flexibility. And of course you factor in Bobby McCain there as well.
But the only way that I can see a pathway to seeing, when I say meaningful playing time, I'm talking about maybe 30% of the time would be if they only keep 3 off-ball linebackers. So that would be Pace, Cashman, and then probably Gregory or Hill, like only 3 of those. And then you could justify keeping an extra safety. And in the way that Brian Flores does things, you just play a safety kind of in the middle of the field more often than you would. But this is me grasping at straws on how it could work, not like a prediction.
Yeah, and bringing up the linebackers is a good segue into the next one, because if it were to come down to these two, because I did see reports earlier today that Brian Asamoa and apparently like the entire 2022 draft class could be traded for late draft capital coming up. So if it were to come down to these two, Brian Asamoa or Dallas Gant, who's a guy that I'm really high on. And if anybody's been watching the film that I've been uploading to VikesNow, when I'm doing a defensive player and I'm like editing it, and I have to watch these reps like 5 times doing it. So like I feel somewhat qualified to say that Dallas Gant is impossible to not notice. So he may just sound like a guy, but like if I'm watching Taki Taimani and cutting up his tape, like Dallas Gant is just like being a complete like game, or not, I won't say game wrecker. I'll settle down, but like Dallas Gant is everywhere. And it's just like, dude, I'm trying to watch the other guy. So long story short, Brian Asamoa or Dallas Gant.
Dustin, I thought this was curious. Just I can't believe how much Asamoa played today.
Yeah,
in the final
he's on the bubble.
Mm-hmm. It seemed like they, either trying to showcase him or he's out the door. And like Brev said, Gant's been kind of flashing. So you'd hate to have another player from that draft class get cut, him and Seen, but it's looking like they're either going to cut or try to trade him before Tuesday.
So Asamoah, I learned a lot about him last year when Jordan Hicks got hurt, and I was like, sweet, Asamoah time, and then in trotted Troy Dye. And then they signed Anthony Barr. And they tried like everything humanly possible not to play Brian Asamoah. And we had Thor Nystrom on the show yesterday, and Thor said he didn't like him coming out of Oklahoma. He doesn't like him now. And so if you combine those two things, he doesn't play inside Flores' defense. The only memory he had of him was a sweet game against the Giants, which was a really, really good play or two for him. And then what you said, Alex, he played all the time today, which suggests heavily that he's on the roster bubble. Thankfully for his sake, they don't have off-ball linebackers galore. I mean, pretty much every linebacker played not named Pace or Cashman today. So I don't want to lose Gant, but I also don't think somebody would swipe him right away. I guess I don't care if Brian Asamoah is cut. I don't have this 2022 draft class like vendetta where like, oh my God, Kwesi sucks. Like, I get it. Like sometimes draft classes or picks don't work out. And if the best thing forward is to get rid of Asamoah and keep Gant, then let's do it. If I had to keep one, I would probably say sayonara to Asamoah. Maybe another team could use him. I don't know that Gant is game ready, but I come from a mindset where if you messed up the draft pick 2 years ago and change, who cares? Move on, try something different. Kind of like the 49ers did with Trey Lance because they had Brock Purdy and nobody really gave him that much heat about that. They were like, all right, let's move on. I like that mindset. I think we spent too much time bitching about the 2022 draft. Like, it wasn't good. We get it. Why can't we move on? That's where I'm at. I'm a Gant guy too.
Yeah, and Kwesi, again, we've mentioned before, he's shown that mindset where like he will get rid of you. Andrew Booth got traded for Nashawn Wright, who's definitely not making the roster. And of course, Andrew Booth was just getting abused today. From what I saw.
Funny. I was every year in the preseason, after the preseason game, I do an article on winners, an article on losers. And it was hard to find losers outside of like injury, like Dalton Reisner, I guess, was a loser, he didn't play. And ironically, let's see, who were we just talking about there?
Andrew Booth.
Mm-hmm.
No, Nashawn Wright. Sorry.
Nashawn Wright.
Yeah, he was one of the ones that I picked as a loser because just got traded for. And I haven't seen anything. Like I don't even know if he played. I think he did, but if I don't know if he played, I have to go figure out if he got snaps. That means he's not contributing. And this is on a team that, because of a death and an ACL tear, was starved for contributors at cornerback. So interestingly, spoiler alert, Nashawn Wright was on one of my losers from the preseason.
Yeah, and usually when you don't hear from a cornerback that much, it's a good thing. But like,
Right.
I don't even know what number that Nashawn Wright wears. I think it's
They never talked about him at training camp either. So
yeah, he's like corner 10 or something. But
it's not a good look for that high of a draft pick.
No, yeah, and not to go back to Asamoa, however you pronounce it, and Gant, and like I wasn't vocal about it, but like I kind of agreed with Thor. Like I didn't really, I guess I understood the draft pick at the time, but it was also like this doesn't really fit, especially what at that time Ed Donatel defense is gonna want to do. Because there's a lot of shell, and Asamoa could not pass cover. That was like his main knock coming out of college.
Well, just think of it this way: at 3:03 p.m. Tuesday, if the roster drops and you go down to off-ball linebackers and Dallas Gant's on there, no Vikings fans going to be like, "What? What are you talking about?" We're all going to be like, "Sweet, Gant's that guy."
Oh, I would be ecstatic. And then the last one to choose between, again, not sure if it would come down to this, but if it were to Dwight McGlothern or a Caleb Evans.
I love McGlothern. He made some plays again today. He's been balling out in training camp practices. I think they hit a home run getting him. What do you think, Dustin? I just after Evans, after his last season, I was ready to move on.
This is the easiest one for me of the whole thing, McGlothern, and I have a couple reasons for it. So even before Kyrie Jackson died, we talked about McGlothern as being another unsung guy. He just wasn't as hyped as much because we had Kyrie, and he was the third rounder. He was the primary young cornerback. Well, McGlothern's name got moved up the agenda because of the tragedy, and then he hasn't disappointed. He's always making impact in the preseason, and that also was backdated to training camp. And then Yannick Eckhart, again, referencing him, like he's told me off air here that McGlothern is the Vikings' best cornerback. Like no caveats to anything. That's the best cornerback right now. So I think because they signed Stephon Gilmore, you have the luxury of parting ways with a Caleb Evans. Let's face it, he was benched last year twice. And McGlothern just shows a little bit more promise. He's bigger. Notoriously, the Vikings have lacked tall cornerbacks for a while, for 5 years. So I would keep McGlothern in a heartbeat because of the youth. And we need a young guy in the pipeline. Otherwise, we're going to be on Travis Hunter watch here in 5-6 months. And that'll hit us before we know it. So yeah, McGlothern over Evans, and I wouldn't lose sleep over it.
Me neither. Yeah, and I'm a known Caleb Evans hater, so McGlothern pretty easily for me. Do we know how much he played, or like how deep into the game he played today?
No, that was concerning. If you're if you are a McGlothern guy, like I think all three of us are. At first, Shelley was out there and whatnot, and then McGlothern came in, and it was like, oh, I thought maybe McGlothern was sitting all together, and this thing was in the books. But then, no, he ended up being behind the rest. So, yeah, that wasn't good if you're reading the tea leaves. But this one boils down to, if you've done the roster math, this is a good one because it's pretty much McGlothern or Evans. And Evans was out there too today. It's not like he was completely safe. So was Fabian Moreau. I didn't see Moreau's last game, but he was out there this game. So it feels like the only ones that are utterly safe are Gilmore, Griffin, and Murphy, which makes sense.
Yeah, I completely agree. But that was the last of the pick one between the two. Other roster bubble players we haven't really talked about. Alex, what do you think? Do you think like Tristan Jackson, like Levi Drake Rodriguez, Tyrese Robinson, who's a guard, Do you see any of these guys or anybody I didn't even name that you thought of that can play their way onto this 53 or have played their way onto this 53?
Yeah, Rodriguez has been flashing. I've been so impressed with him, and all Tristan Jackson does is make plays. It doesn't matter what quarterback is throwing to him. I've just been really impressed with him. To make it for the wide receiver group is going to be a little bit tougher for him. But yeah, I mean every time they've thrown him out there, he's made plays. So those two guys have really impressed me, and McGlothern too. Just bringing his name up again. Those guys, have been really, flashing and doing everything they can to try to make it.
When you didn't hear this today because of your telecast problem, Brev, but Kevin O'Connell spoke about Levi Drake Rodriguez as like it was one of his favorite players.
I heard he was gushing.
Yeah, he's like this guy's in there on every play disrupting. And so when you hear that, I think Levi was playing today because he's a 7th round rookie, not because he's not going to make the roster. I think Levi is a lock for the roster and be criminal if he wasn't there, especially since he's so big. And the Vikings don't have a lot of big linemen. Other guys on the roster bubble, just to recap, high-profile ones: Brian Asamoa, Lewis Seen, Jiren Hall, probably not after today, Patrick Jones, James Lynch. Reisner feels like more of a cut candidate than a roster bubble guy. Duke Shelley, I only bring that one up because that was a big oh my God moment in July. And then Tanyan, like we talked about at the top of the show. It's weird to see Reisner's very rapid fall from grace. I guess the only thing
changing positions too.
Yeah, a lifelong left guard. They're like, you're playing right guard, and then it must be that this back injury is going to linger, because I don't know how it would be such a no-brainer. Like a week before roster trim downs, everybody's like, oh yeah, our sources say he's getting cut. Like it's not like the guy is some fringe mid like guy. He started like what 60, 70 games in the 50, 60 games in the NFL. And I don't know how we have this outstanding pass protector and we're like, oh yeah, he's not going to make it. The way we talk about Reisner this last week is if he's just some asshole that barely plays. And it's not that I disagree that he's not going to make the team. It's weird that we got here. And it's also weird that nobody ever wants him in free agency. We talked to Thor yesterday, and it might just be because he's somewhat attitudinal or isn't a big leader. But I don't know. I'm perturbed that Reisner can't be a backup for the Vikings, evidently. But if it's a back injury, those are probably the worst to have in any sport because it fucks everything else up.
Yeah, they might keep Jurgens, because of that. They, for an extra offensive lineman, we'll see. They drafted him, so could be.
I'm kind of spin zone. Maybe it's a good thing that Dalton Reisner can't play backup as a guard for the Vikings. Like maybe the depth is just that good. Like Dalton Reisner is not fantastic. Don't get me wrong, but like if Tyrese Robinson and Dan Feeney, like I don't remember watching any Dan Feeney.
I don't think you see the field. Yeah,
you gotta chop the tape up, Brev.
Yeah, and Dalton Reisner, like I'm not gonna lie, like whenever I've watched an interview, I don't know the guy. I'm watching an interview on a TV screen, 18 hours away from Minneapolis, but like he just always gives me the weirdest vibe. Like just when I can't explain. It's just like stop talking. I don't know. I don't know how else to say it.
Let me ask you this, Alex, as we part ways. We probably won't talk to you until we're a few weeks into the regular season. So knowing what we know with this disgusting McCarthy injury, everything's delayed with him now for a year. It really pisses me off. What is your win-loss prediction after seeing all of training camp, all of preseason, all the damn injuries? The Vikings will finish what and what?
I think 500, like 8-9. Yeah,
okay.
Right. Yeah, just the early part of the schedule really scares me. After this Giants game, then it gets really difficult. I think they'll pick up some wins later in the year. Hopefully Darnold stays healthy. This is his best opportunity, obviously, that he's ever had. So hopefully he takes advantage of it, and as we all expect, try to get him a Geno Smith, Baker Mayfield type deal, and with another team after. So yeah, I think 500 as long as he stays healthy.
Yeah, and we keep talking about this schedule, rightfully so, after the Giants game being murderous. But I want to caveat that with this Giants game isn't like some big no-brainer win or anything like that. I will be elated if they beat the Giants, mainly because I don't know what to expect. It's going to be so weird watching that game. It's not going to feel like the Vikings that we know from the last half decade, which I'm okay with. It's going to be really weird. Brev, are you more? I'm at 7-10. Sounds like Alex at 8-9. Are you more optimistic than either of us?
No,
Nope.
I think we're pretty in we're in lockstep. It's gonna be. And Thor was saying yesterday too. Because of course I listened to the episode, but if they're worse than that, cool. Let's get a better draft pick. Not to be the tank guy. I'm not saying that. Yeah, I'm not saying to tank. I'm not a tank guy, but like.
Look at this division too. I mean, even the Bears, they always are the laughing stock, but I mean that wide receiving core that they put together is just so impressive. And so we'll see. Obviously Caleb's gonna have some rookie moments, but I mean they're getting a lot better. Credit to Ryan Poles for what he's doing.
Yeah, the division got in a big damn hurry, and it's all of it's good. If you assume the Vikings are kind of good, then the whole division's good. All right, gentlemen. Alex, anything to get off your chest before we part ways?
No, thanks guys for having me on again. It's always fun, and thank God the regular season is finally here soon. I can't wait. That Thursday game, what a way to start off the NFL season with the Ravens and the Chiefs. It's going to be fantastic, and then you get Philly, Green Bay. So yeah, we're starting off with some bangers. So yeah, can't wait for a regular season to start.
Yeah, we get to be fans out of the gate there. Brev, anything for you to get off your chest?
It's just wild that the regular season is here.
Mm-hmm.
Feels like it was just February, and we're talking about what quarterback we're going to draft and how many first-round picks we're going to trade it for Drake May. But now I have to watch Sam Darnold play quarterback. So
and our show was a merchant of that. Believe you me.
And
all right, gentlemen.
Only one more thing. Only the Vikings to have a first-round quarterback, and he's out for the entire year before he even gets to play one game. It's only this franchise, right?
Oh yeah, I've been telling. I was on some radio show in Southeast Minnesota on Thursday, and I told the host that I almost wish that McCarthy looked like shit during the preseason game. Then we wouldn't care,
Right.
If he just would have looked like Trey Lance today, I would have been like, oh, good, put him on ice. But the fact that he looked so great for about 45 minutes of real lifetime. And then just the slow roll of news that led to the damn tear meniscus. It was like, watching like your bad dream come to fruition. Like, oh, it's a little tweak of the knee is going to be just fine. And then everybody's like, that doesn't sound right. And then it was like, oh, it's a torn meniscus, but it might be the good kind. And I looked right at my friend Wes Johnson. I was like, it's not going to be the good kind. I can promise you that.
Not with this franchise.
Nope. And then less than 18 hours later, it was like, oh, no, he's out for the season. And again, I will say, I almost wish that he looked like utter garbage in the preseason. That way we wouldn't have to have this just emotional roller coaster. There's always some shit like this that happens.
Yes.
All right, that's my rant. All right, Alex, we'll probably talk to you at the end of September when things are cooking into week 3, week 4, okay?
Sounds good.
All right, guys, you take it easy.
Yeah, later.